Hey folks, Barnaby Dixon here. So this video is going to be a little bit different because I'm actually going to be sharing some behind the scenes footage from a project that I've been working on for the last nearly 2 years now actually. This video is also sponsored by Private Internet Access, so I'm going to have Dabchik tell you a little bit more about them in a little bit. This project came to me back in September of 2019 when I was tagged by theatre director Nicholas Heitner of the British Theatre in London to direct the puppetry and create the puppets, in fact, for this stage adaptation of a Philip Pullman book called The Book of Dust. So normally, as you guys perhaps know if you've been following the channel for a while, I make pretty small puppets, but if I was going to kind of adapt them to the stage, I'd have to consider how visible they're going to be, so I have to scale up the design. So instantly that presents the challenge of weight. So to make an aesthetic choice that kind of can counteract that was kind of crucial from the get-go. So I considered a kind of origami style, but instead of using paper, we're using this very hard-wearing, durable type of plastic called Tyvek. And here's an early render actually that Jack, my 3D modeler, put together, where you can get a sense of how this might look if we light it from the inside, which is something we're still considering doing. So me and a small team of 4 others set up in the Bridge Theatre. So the 2 ladies here are Sophia and Saskia, and they started working out the paper elements. And Jack, the 3D modeler that I mentioned before, is on the right here. Our producer Glenn came with us as well. He took care of a lot of the organisation and the research associated with the project. So I got to figuring out the mechanisms and was reminded of a video by Veritasium from a couple of years ago, I think, where he was talking about compliant mechanisms. And I figured since we're going to be using 3D printing, maybe it might be useful to print these mechanisms as a single piece and use kind of the material properties to create this kind of compliance. So here are a few kind of tests that I did that use in part compliant joints. So at a certain point during our time at the British Theatre, we auditioned a cast and tried to get a sense of how many of these folks could potentially kind of have a knack for the puppetry side of things. And what was really interesting is it seemed to have no bearing on how good they were, whether they said they'd had experience with puppetry or hadn't. I figure because this type of puppetry is so different that really any past experience of puppetry isn't necessarily going to be a benefit. So this footage that you're seeing now was actually shot in March of 2020 and just a few days before the country went into lockdown because of COVID. So we all kind of went to our respective homes and the project really slowed down and we were in our homes for a lot longer than expected.
Yes, indeed. And what happens when people are bored and at home? Well, their internet history takes a turn for the weird. What are we looking at here? Tickle the banjo strings there, B-Dog, while I tell the good people about Private Internet Access. Oh, lovely. Private Internet Access changes your IP address and reroutes your internet traffic through an encrypted tunnel, thereby hiding your online activity from your internet service provider, network administrator, and government censors. While helping safeguard your online privacy, Private Internet Access's VPN software also blocks ads, trackers, and malicious websites. Private Internet Access is available on all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and many more. By using this link, you can get complete digital privacy for less than $3 a month and 2 extra months for free. That means only $2.08 a month and 83% off. So go do that, and you can get right on back to your weird, nefarious browsing habits with only the good Lord above to answer to. Ta-ta!
So during lockdown, we were keen to get as much done as possible in terms of refining the design. So I, as before, continued working on the mechanisms and Jack would 3D model them as I went. Saskia and Sophia continued working on the paper elements. Here's some examples of what they were creating. Just absolutely wonderful work, I think. Glenn started getting the 3D printed elements underway, and this is a huge 3D printer inside this box being delivered to his home via forklift so he could get this process going while we were all locked down. So from my side of things, 2 types of puppets in particular became my primary focus. So this is a bird design and a quadruped design. I figured that a range of puppets could use the same basic mechanisms here and just be reproportioned for the type of animal that we're trying to create. So a few months ago, the theatre then informed us that they were aiming for, I think, December of 2021. So 6 months from now, to have the stage thing happen. So we were kind of scrambling and figuring out how to achieve this, when a contact that we have at an arts university thought there might be some funding available for some sort of collaboration. So the university stepped up and very kindly provided space, equipment, and some recent graduates to help us pull this off. So this is basically where we are at now. So since this project will have to be a focus of mine for the next few months, what I'm thinking of doing is kind of demoing the puppets on this channel as I complete them. So if you'd like to make sure that you catch all of this, do feel free to subscribe, hit notifications somewhere below so you see these videos. And if you would like to support the work that I'm doing, here's a link to my Patreon page, and any donations are very much appreciated. Finally, Destin Sandlin from Smarter Every Day really kindly invited me on a podcast to talk about a recent video of mine, so I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well. Here's a little clip from that podcast. When it comes to a controversial topic, it's very good to remind people that the guest is a human, you know, and something that's creative, something that's graceful, something that's expressive. I think, especially right at the end of the video, it's sort of a message to say, okay, you're dealing with a person here, please think of them that way, don't forget that's what they are.